Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Tina Ray. I'm an educational and child psychologist. And today I want to share with you the real recovery plan that I've developed over the last few days. I've been thinking very much about our schools fully reopening. I know that they've been open throughout the whole of this last year for our children and young people of key workers. But obviously in the next week or so here in the UK, we are going to be opening our schools fully to all our children and welcoming them back again. So I just want to go through this plan with you, which I hope will be something you might want to share at a staff meeting or with parents, carers, just to focus on some key points that I think may be useful for us all to reflect on at this point in time. So as usual, I'm using the initials each time, so recovery plan. So our recovery and rebuilding our connections are really crucial at this point. Making sure that we really focus on the well-being, not just of the children, but of the staff teams, of those who are nurturing and supporting our children and young people. It's got to be the key focus. Without putting that first, I think we're at risk of really undermining people's mental health and well-being overall. We know, for example, that unregulated adults, unregulated children can't focus, can't learn. We also know that for many of us, experiencing the lockdowns, the reopening the lockdowns, and kind of having to navigate this pandemic at this time, we will have become more anxious. We will find it harder to actually process information. It might have impacted on our working memory, for example, in terms of how much we can absorb and take on board at any given time. So it has to be about recovery, and rebuilding and maintaining emotional well-being has to be at the forefront now. I also think it's about encouragement here. We need to encourage a focus on our values and our strengths, highlighting all the positive things about us as a community in the school, but also highlighting what we've learned. What are the lessons that we've learned about ourselves, about others, about the world per se during this pandemic, and focusing on what really went well and making sure that our children know that those things can happen again. We've got to actually ensure that there is a sense of hope, that things will get better, we will pull together again, and we will be able to navigate through this pandemic coming back into the school context. Obviously, co-regulation here, see, co-regulation is absolutely essential. We need to be able to co-regulate with our children and young people and share our calm. And this means really that we've also got to know what works for us. So whether that's grounding, mindfulness, visualization, whatever you do in terms of actually regulating yourself, make sure that you know the skills and the tools that you are using and that you really reinforce them and make use of them on a daily basis. Dysregulated, unregulated adults, as I said earlier, cannot possibly nurture and regulate children who also are dysregulated. It's just an impossibility. So very, very important, this notion of developing our toolbox strategies. I think at this time as well, we're going to have to be very, very observant. There are children, young people who will have had a bereavement, who will have had to cope, I think, with some significant losses and changes. And it's really important that we validate these, we acknowledge them, that we're aware of them, and really knowing that grief is a unique process. It's not linear. Okay, so it's very, very important. It comes in waves, and I think it's really, really important we are observant of the children and of each other, and we provide the right kind of acknowledgement and support. Essentially, it's the relationships that we have, those loving, nurturing relationships, that help us to heal. So really important to remember that. Valuing the staff team and putting their well-being first, I think, has to be an absolute priority. They've got to be regulated. They've got to feel that they can share their calm, but they have to find it. So putting in place the right kind of whole school systems for wellbeing, peer support, interventions that work, such as peer group supervision. Use your school educational and child psychologists in this way. Use the people who you know can help you set up and really make these peer support groups and networks work. But ultimately, it's about really valuing each team member and making sure that there is no stigma attached. This is a continuum. We know that some of us would have really struggled during lockdown. Some of us would have struggled actually facilitating online learning or coping with it on an ongoing basis. I think it's really important we don't stigmatise those who found it harder than others. We are there as a team together. We need to value each other. Explain as well. Really, really important. Children and young people at this moment in time are being bombarded by the media with messages that they are the COVID lost generation, that they're all behind, that they're never going to be able to catch up. It's going to go with them for the rest of their lives. It's going to impact even on how much money they can earn in the future and their jobs, in terms of actually accessibility to education and learning, etc. This is really, really difficult. We don't want this to become a self-fulfilling prophecy. We know that some of our young children and young people will have struggled and will have lost some of their learning. But this is not a sprint, okay? It's really important that we as the adults give them this message. We know that they might have missed some bits. We know that they might feel anxious, some of them, about feeling that they are behind. But we're there as the adults and as the professionals who know how to help them with their learning. And we need to make sure that they are given that level of confidence from us, okay? This is not a race. It's not a sprint. And learning is a lifelong journey for all of us. So they don't just get one chance, okay? They can have another chance, and we can provide that for them at this time. Repair. I really don't believe that every single child or young person is going to develop significant mental health needs as a result of what's happened during this last year. I do, however, know from colleagues in mental health professions that there has been an increase in referrals, that we are going to see more children who really do need support. And those who went into the lockdown periods and already had diagnosed mental health conditions, there will have been some significant problems for them during this time. However, we need to be really, really careful about, I think, over-medicalising, pathologising every single child, okay? For some of our children, they will need additional support, and we know how to recognise them. You've got your mental health leads, your Senkos, your learning mentors, who will be able to identify and recognise those children's needs. Every child will not need a bespoke therapeutic intervention. And we need to just think very carefully. Every conversation that we have, just going up and down the corridor with a child, can be, in my view, an intervention. We need to listen, acknowledge the uncertainty, be curious and kind, so that we can support the child in really processing their concerns and their fears and their worries. Okay, yesterday's be learnt from. We've all got worries, fears, concerns that we've had. We've all made mistakes. And it's really important now that we remain solution focused. We focus on our strengths, what we've learnt, what we can do differently now in this so-called new normal, and how we can co-create these new solutions together. And it's really important that the voice of the child is central to this. We really listen to what they are saying. Planning. Essential, of course, that we plan the welcome for all and reaffirm the routines and safety measures. Absolutely essential. Very important that we plan for the fact that some of our children of key workers have been in school all this time. It may be that they have some issues around how to manage the other kids coming back in, for example. It may be that some of our children who've really thrived in online learning, some of our children with ASD, for example, they may be finding this really difficult. We need to plan for them to plan for this transition, for the whole community to be back together. But essentially, reaffirming those routines and safety measures is key here. We're here to keep you safe, and we can do this together. It's really important that children know that this is a safe space for them. Also, that the staff do too. Learn from their experiences. As I said, the voice of the child is absolutely paramount here. If the child is saying, I need help with this, I'm worried about this, I can't do this anymore, I don't understand that process, I think I've forgotten it, then that's what we listen to. We mustn't go down the easier route, which is to say, this is what you need from us adults right now. We have to really listen to them. They'll tell us what they're worried about, and then we can plan and learn from their experiences. Attachments as ever matter. Really important that we reaffirm these with our children and young people. They will have missed us. They will have seen us virtually, but they will have missed us. And I think it's really, really important that we show that we care, we value them, we want to be together. It's these loving, nurturing relationships that really do ensure post-traumatic growth. So absolutely essential that we reinforce them now. And of course, nurture. I'm an absolute believer, as anyone who has heard me speak before will know. I really passionately believe that nurture works, and nurture has to come first here for all of us within what I would call a resilient, flexible and compassionate community. It's going to pave the way for all of us to re-engage with learning, because it will focus primarily and essentially in the first instance on building well-being, building that sense of safety. So I think it's really, really important. We want children to be successful in all domains, emotionally and in their learning. So let's catch up with real recovery, knowing that we can all do this together. My plan is available. If you follow me on Twitter, you can obviously download it. And I really hope that this is useful. It just possibly will give you a 10-minute slot in a team meeting or staff meeting where you can just have a listen and reflect on this and think about how you're going to actually ensure real recovery as you go forward into this next term. Thanks for listening.